A lifelong resident of Killingly, she brings her previous experience as a nurse and a pharmaceutical rep to her work on the Children, Education, and Public Health Committees. Her husband Dale, who we all affectionately know as Duffy, still leads the Quiet Corner Tea Party Patriot. Representing the 44th Assembly District, which covers Killingly, Plainfield, and Sterling, please give a warm welcome to State Representative Ann Dauphinais.
Thank you all, I appreciate that. These kind of speeches aren't my forte. I usually get up and just do a lot of yelling and hooting and try to rah-rah the crowd, so I'll try to make it not so boring. I do have it written. Thank you for the warm welcome, and as they mentioned, I am the representative for the 44th District, Killingly, Plainfield, and Sterling, way up in the northeast corner of the state. I am one of 13 members of the House Conservative Caucus in the Connecticut General Assembly, a group of citizens committed to bringing conservative principles in our legislative process. Over the last 8 years of my tenure, I am one of only a few that regularly vote against my party quite often. Certainly, voting against my party is not a principle or a desire, it's just the way it worked out. So why do I vote against my party more than most? Principles. And that's what we're here today, is to talk about following our principles. Because at times their votes make no sense to my conservative principles and libertarian ideology. This includes adhering to my oath of office to preserve, protect, and defend our state and federal constitutions, a most foundational principle for me, so help me God. When I think of principles in voting, I think of former State Senator Joe Markley. When you heard the vote was 35-1, you knew Joe was the only no vote in the Senate. Joe voted on principle despite his colleagues' disagreement. He didn't care. He had principles no Republican or Democrat could dissuade. Senator Rob Sampson, now in Joe's former seat, is the same way. He doesn't care if he's the only no vote, not in the end. In defining conservatism, Reagan once said, if you analyze it, I believe the very heart and soul of conservatism is libertarianism. I think conservatism is really a misnomer, just as liberalism is a misnomer for liberals. The basis of conservatism is a desire for less government interference or less centralized authority or more individual freedom. And this is a pretty general description also of what libertarianism is. Even when we have difficult votes, I figure out what principles apply and act accordingly. When I first got elected, I felt a bit overwhelmed. How would I know how to vote? And I think many in this room probably know my husband, Duffy Dauphinais, who runs the Tea Party in the northeast corner. And so my husband made it easy. He said, just vote your principles. If you can defend your principle, you can defend your vote. And I remember that every time I'm up at the State House. In so many ways, it makes legislating much easier. So often I don't get caught up in the minutia of a bill because on its face it violates my principles. For example, in 2018, SB 206, an act authorizing pregnancy as a qualifying event. Since the passage of this bill, insurance companies are required to insure for pregnancy after you learn you were pregnant, even if you did not sign up or pay for pregnancy coverage. Prior to the passing of this bill, at enrollment time, individuals were required to decide whether or not they needed pregnancy coverage, similar to deciding whether or not you want fire coverage on your home. This bill is like requiring an insurance company to give you house fire insurance after your house burns down. Why don't we mandate that? Because it's stupid. The House floor debate uncovered that the passage of this bill would increase the cost of insurance coverage in Connecticut by as much as $100 or more. Fiscal cost of this bill would not be revealed in the bill, as the fiscal note in bills only includes the costs that will impact our state and our taxes. The bill and bills like it interfere with free market principles, resulting in a higher cost for all of us. Only 10 of the 90 Republicans voted against this bill, and I was the only female. I remember that day well. It was my first term, and I stood alone while every other female from the House floor celebrated their victory vote in support of this bill by going to the well of the House for a photo op with the press. That stung, but I knew that I wasn't there to interfere with the free market. I knew this was going to be a costly bill for everyone, and I knew that I was on the right side, even if only with a few. This is just an example of how principles come into play when legislating, how differences in Republican beliefs can be counted. Another bill in 2017, number 6695, the protection of youth from conversion therapy. 8 of the 90 Republicans voted no. During the House debate, the proponent of the bill could not even define what conversion therapy is, but argued how terrible and cruel it was. More importantly, the bill did not even eliminate conversion therapy. It only eliminated a citizen's ability to pay for this type of therapy, whatever that is, but continued to allow this therapy if you do not pay for it. For example, if your child was gay and you wanted your child to see your priest, that would be perfectly fine. But paying a professional counselor to have a discussion that discussed the possibility that the child might be confused is now prohibited. Myself, along with others, do not want children abused. However, this bill was censorship of a client-doctor conversation and interfered with parental authority. What business does the government have regulating this?
None.
Yeah.
None.
The government eliminated a citizen's ability to seek medical help for his family. A person's ability to apply his trade was eliminated. Only 8 Republicans voted against this intrusive bill. We have been dubbed the Hateful Eight. This title will follow me throughout my political career as it's been highlighted in every re-election.
Very proud.
So standing for your principles is not a momentary event. Standing for your principles not only occurs with votes, but through actions. For example, during Governor Malloy's reign, the Conservative caucus enjoyed our big gulp cups on the House floor and even made news across the state and the front page of the newspaper in Aruba. On a busy House session day, when the Governor Malloy was going to give his State of State address, the Conservative caucus members proudly arrived with their big gulp cups, colorfully filled, displaying them for all to see, including the press. What principle were we standing for with this stunt? At the time, Governor Malloy and the Democrats were pushing an increased tax on all drinks larger than 16 ounces, and most people know the big gulp is 32 ounces or more. This was surely one of the most memorable and, might I add, fun days I've had in my position as a legislator. I never wore a mask and made headlines in the Hartford Courant for being kicked out of the House floor. And I was fine being... And I was fine being escorted out of the chamber along with a few others. Again, standing against mandates by actions with no words. Unfortunately, as you know, too many are now under the threat from the cancel culture. It's sad, a Stalinist nature of American culture that has quickly emerged in our society. This is now the arena in which we wrestle. Today, self-censorship of smart conservatives is now the norm. They too have to put food on the table for their family. I learned about principles early in my first year when I voted to deny consumers the ability to get eye doctor exams online, or in essence, telehealth. My gut told me I shouldn't, but I voted against allowing the services. Freshman jitters, I guess. A moment of reluctance, and I voted against my better judgment that the government should not have the authority to decide such choices. This bill was unanimously voted into passage, and not one legislator, even myself, stood against it. Once home that evening, my husband pointed out the error of my ways. Simply stated, the bill was to prevent eye doctors to provide online eye exams. All sorts of arguments were made on why such exams should not be allowed. Some brick and mortar establishments testified it would hurt their business. Some testified the exam could be faulty, as if all in-person exams are foolproof. Funny thing is, COVID came and everyone was on board with anything and everything online. Meetings, medical visits, school, and more. Suddenly it was no longer risky to have online exams. Let's think about that for a minute. The government does not exist to selectively protect one business over another. Legislators have no right to decide where a citizen should purchase a product or service or the quality of your exam. Interfering in the free market and the free association to contract is not a legitimate role of our government. I should have voted to allow the services. It was a great lesson on an inconsequential matter early in my political career. Since COVID, the legislature has passed various telehealth bills, and they have become commonplace. Somehow, COVID made many principles and assumptions change. Our Senate Republican minority leader was quoted last week saying, "People should be trusted to make the right choices for themselves and their family." He made this statement in a response to electric vehicles and allowing individuals to choose the kind of car that best fits the needs of themselves and their family. It made me wonder, if he had to take the vote for online eye exams today, would he embrace that same belief for eye exams? Does he really believe that people should be trusted to make the right choices for themselves and their family? Would he remain true to those principles? Well, today I was asked to speak about following our principles. So I will discuss what the term principle means, a short list of Connecticut and federal Republican principles, the 13 CTRA principles, and some of my own more personal principles. A principle is a fundamental truth, law, doctrine, assumption, or proposition that serves as a foundation for a system of beliefs or behavior or a chain of reasoning. I thought to myself, what are my principles? What are the Republican principles, both state and federal? I looked them up and I wasn't very impressed. The state GOP has a 3-bullet tripe about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness and individual rights, and lets us know that a free nation is a more prosperous and happy nation. That's the extent of articulated principles. The national GOP page was similar. Each are abstract ideas both Democrats and socialists believe. They only differ on how to achieve life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Does anyone actually believe that the Connecticut GOP's principles will entice young people to join our party? I don't think so. The CTRA has published a list of 13 beliefs. Number 1, unalienable rights. Exactly. Natural rights are God-given and not man-made. 2, Judeo-Christian foundation. Agreed. God is our moral compass, and I sense we are losing this battle in society. 3, self-government. Returning to our founding principles would be a good thing for our country. Not the Hamiltonian view, but the Jeffersonian view, where states were experiments of liberty and a belief in federal Republican values. 4, education. Parental rights and choice must supersede the state. I work hard for parental rights because it's so important that we citizens rule, not the state. Taxes. Agreed, our taxes are abusive. 6, free enterprise. Voluntary exchange of goods and services is the moral choice in a successful society. Both freedom and property rights are inseparable from a successful society. Family. A nuclear family is the cornerstone of an American society, or any successful society. We must end policies that incentivize the disunion of parents. Sanctity of life. I am a pro-life Christian. For me, killing babies is not an option. For some Republicans, it is. National defense. Yes, we should be prepared for war. Reagan's peace through strength has proven successful through history. But recognize Bush's NDAA is now used to spy on Americans, used by the deep state to spy on political opponents, used to create government lists for retribution. Number 10, the right to bear arms. Absolutely. This is intended to prevent the government from taking away our God-given right to protect ourselves. 11, victims' rights. Rights of victims over criminals. Yes, of course. Today's perpetrators are the victims, and victims are at times seen as the perpetrators. 12, national sovereignty. Biden's failure to secure our border, to me, is an impeachable offense, let alone his illegal financial dealings with China, Ukraine, Spain, and the like. And finally, decentralized government. The 10th Amendment states rights and federalism is the best approach to governance. For me, it is easy to incorporate beliefs into my principles, these beliefs. I see Republicans that run as a conservative to get elected because it's fashionable and plays to the base, and then vote like a liberal once in office. This occurs at both the national and the state level. I see Republicans at the state and federal level that vote for laws that violate life, liberty, and property, and that restrict individual rights and liberty all the time. It's normal. Ignorance or political expedience over principles is what I see in so many votes. I work hard to not to be that type of legislator, and for me, it's actually quite easy. Legislators need to understand many of the laws passed restrict life, liberty, and property rights of individuals and provide government coercion and allow government force for compliance to include putting you in a cage. Thinking conservative Republicans recognize this and are prudent in their thought process and their votes. Some Republicans, not so much. They believe that state power is better than social power. Think about it. The national GOP wants us to believe they are the party of fiscal restraint, even though we have $34 trillion debt. They want you to believe it's the Democrats' fault, not theirs. This is from a Connecticut Republican Party that took pride in working on and passing a bipartisan budget. Our 2023 budget increased our spending by almost $3 billion. That is billion with a B, and was sold to the constituents as a good bipartisan bill that cut taxes. It was an awful bill, and I am so disappointed that Republicans went along with it. So many are determined to compromise and make a bipartisan bill. I think of it like this. Imagine a large bucket filled with tickets. Each ticket represents a freedom. Each time we compromise, we give up one of those freedoms. The Dems give up nothing. They only prolong getting more from the bucket. Folks, those freedoms are disappearing. One by one, we are giving them up in the name of compromise. It angers me that this was touted as bipartisan and shows you the disconnect between conservatives and their Republican colleagues. This bill, in addition to increasing spending by almost $3 billion, expanded health care coverage for illegal immigrants, swept money for teacher retirement to fund a new baby bond program, expanded debt-free college programs, allocated $50 million each year to settle union strikes, uses tax dollars to pay for $8.5 million of medical debt, expands gender-affirming healthcare services, allocates another $80 million of taxpayers' money to the Excel Center, funds tennis courts in Montville, and funds the Jazz Festival in Litchfield. And the list goes on and on. Huge expansion of government and more spending than ever. All sold in the name of historic tax cuts. We have increased spending by almost $3 billion to give a few single filers a $20 to $25 tax cut. The 2023 budget bill, number 6941, was voted for by all Republicans but 12 of the 66 in the legislature. I'm okay with being one of the 12. It makes sense. Plenty of our principles were violated. Folks, we are the frogs in the pot of water on the stove, slowly boiling to our demise. Now I would like to share with you some questions I personally ask myself when assessing a bill or legislative action. My own checklist against my principles, my own sniff test. Does it violate my oath to the federal or state constitutions for which I pledge support and defend? Does it violate my conservative libertarian principles? Is the proposed law a legitimate purpose of government? Does it increase or decrease property rights of the citizen? Does it increase or decrease state power over social power? Is it moral? Am I willing to arrest and confine a person in a cage for noncompliance? Does it reflect my constituents' best interest, especially the taxpayers? Is it voluntary or require coercion and force? Are the consumers and citizens represented? These are a few questions I consider when contemplating a bill. The following are just a few bills that I've had to assess in which my principles came into play that made me differ with my own party. The insulin bill, 4 of 66 Republicans voted no. This is another bill in the name of forcing price restriction, regulates the private sector, and results in increased insurance premiums for everyone. Breastfeeding bill in the workplace. 10 of 66 Republicans voted no, another costly business regulation. 6587 requires a task force to study Medicaid coverage of diapers. 16 of 60 Republicans voted no. Honestly, why are we looking to add providing diapers to a program that provides free health care? Neither are the role of government. Also, understand that while, yes, this is only a study, most studies turn into bills and then into law. These are just a sampling. The list goes on and on. When considering Republican or conservative political philosophies and principles, and there have been many over time, please understand conservatives are not opposed to change. Conservatives just desire change to be slow and prudent. You don't overturn thousands of years' experience and lessons learned because individuals in academia have determined men have babies. Republicans and conservatives have a goal, which is to achieve a balance between freedom and order. But as might be expected, we have different means to achieve these ends. No different than comparing Democrat solutions to Republican solutions. And as Thomas Sowell instructs, there are no solutions, just trade-offs. We all want people's lives to be better. We just see different means by achieving this objective. In my opinion, today's conservatives in general are trying to conserve the American culture that our founders created. The Freedom Caucus in Washington was spurred from the Tea Party, and we have our own conservative caucus here in Connecticut. We have two different visions on what republicanism means and what our principles should be. We conservatives need to become more persuasive to convince the unaffiliate that we offer a better path to their everyday lives. And if we follow our principles, we will win.
Yes.
So many believe we must compromise, go along to get along. Well, look where that's gotten us. Each time we compromise, the Dems get some of what they want, and we give up some more of our freedoms from that bucket. In conclusion, I believe there are reasons why many Republicans do not follow through on their principles. Some are they want to be liked. For some, this is extremely important. They have voter fear. They fear not being reelected. They really believe it's a good bill. They are willing to compromise, give up this to get what? They succumb to the mob while disregarding the individual. I will end with this. While I know my short poem won't hold a candle to those written by my colleague, Representative Craig Fishbein, I will share mine. Republicans are red, Democrats are blue. Oftentimes, there's little difference between the two. Thank you all for being here today, and God bless.